friends. Welcome to Universal Talks. Today, we're diving into the realms of astrology, past lives, consciousness, and quantum healing with the incredible Patricia Grootjans. Patricia is a seasoned astrologer, fellow quantum healer, and hypnotherapist who trained directly with Dolores Cannon in QHHT before her passing. She's certified in energy healing. She's a meditation teacher and spirit release practitioner, helping people expand their awareness and reconnect with their soul's journey. Today, we'll be exploring her near-death experience, astrology's role in healing, and the deeper mysteries of the quantum field. Welcome, welcome, Patricia. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Kenny. Thank you so much for having me.
It's
What a
my
beautiful
pleasure.
introduction.
Yes, yes. I didn't even know how to summarize all the amazing things that you do. So we'll get into it though, the nitty gritty, because you do so much, so much, and I just thank you for taking the time and the moment to be here.
Oh, I'm really glad that you asked me because I've been watching your videos and I really find them really inspirational. So thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, good. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. So let's just start at the beginning. What was your childhood like? Were there like any experiences that were spiritual or out of this world? Or were you just a normal little kid?
Well, I think I did have spiritual experiences ever since I was quite young. I
I'm
think as far
sure.
as I can remember, the age of 5, 6, 7, maybe.
Mm,
Feeling the connection with the other world. And fortunately, I had a father who was mediumistic. And so
okay.
this is something that we could talk about. And although this is something that develops gradually, of course, I mean, you have different conversations when you're 7 compared to when you're 12 or so.
For sure. Yeah.
But it did make me open for other realities, let's say, and knowing that there is more after life because he had something that he could usually see when people would die, for example, or he would receive messages from people who passed away.
Mhm.
So it has always been obvious for me that there's just a thin line between this world and the afterlife. And I've always been fascinated about that. So, yeah, I think it has become a theme in my life, actually. Yeah.
The the death part or just the thinning of the veil?
The thinning of the veil and being
Yeah.
able to communicate beyond that veil.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Were there any like defining moments in your early years that made you question the nature of reality? Because when you're aware of such quantum things at a young age, I know from experience, it's kind of hard to navigate.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think I was really fortunate that I had a few people in my life who were quite spiritual. So
Yeah,
it was easy for me to have people close to me who I could talk about these experiences.
that's good.
For example, I started energy healing when I was 12, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, so it was really during my teenage years in high school. My friends used to like that, and it was just very in a playful way,
Yeah, yeah.
and also astrology because I was 12 years old when a friend of mine who was much older than I was made my birth chart or did an analysis of my birth chart, and I was so fascinated about this. And I thought, this is something that I would like to learn. I want to know everything about it. So I started learning astrology all by myself through reading books at the age of 12. And later on, I did the education, of course, but so it has become like a second language for me. That's how I see it. Astrology is really like a language, a star
Mhm.
language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
makes sense how you're so adaptant be at such a young age because it is like learning a different language. And if you're born in that environment, it's just second nature to you because I do my best with astrology, but it's just sometimes it's just like whew, way over my head. But I have like you and my good friend Sonia Wilder, who's an amazing astrologer. So I'm just like, hey, what does this mean?
I, yeah,
It's just,
exactly.
it's a lot. It's a lot to process. It's a gift.
Yeah, it is really something that it takes quite a few years to really learn how to analyze all the symbols and all the constellations. It really takes a few years. You can't learn
Mhm.
it in a few weeks, or
No.
it really takes time because you need to practice and you have to make it your own. You have to build
Yes.
a connection with the energies of the planets, I guess.
Right. And actually go
Yeah.
through the cycle, the linear cycle, I feel like, to actually get the physical reactions and frequencies. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And
Yeah.
of course, we all know the moon, who has its 28 days cycle.
Yeah.
And most people can feel the cycle of the moon. But we also can feel the cycle of the sun or other planets as well, although that usually happens on a subconscious level.
Right.
And I think for quantum healers, it is such a great tool to use because we are working with extraterrestrial consciousness in quantum healing. So it is actually so close to astrology if you look at astrology from a, well, quantum perspective, I would say.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
one thing that I just love about it is, but for me, it's the words. I get, there's so many words and titles, but whenever I do
yeah,
feel a connection, I'm like, oh, I do know that. Like that makes so
yeah,
much sense. It's just, that's one thing I've
yeah,
always been drawn to astrology is just the resonance with it. Because it's not
yeah.
like a horoscope prediction type of thing. It's yeah.
Exactly. And I feel that this is the most important reason to use astrology, not for making predictions, because that's quite difficult. But it's about understanding who we are and what our place in the cosmos is.
Hmm.
And if you learn to see the cycles of the stars and the planets, you start to understand what our own role is within all these cycles and how everything that is happening in nature is happening within ourselves. And so, yes, it's really fascinating.
Yeah. And one of the
And,
comforting things for me is again the resonance of, oh, I'm feeling this. Is it more a personal thing? Is it a collective thing? Is it what's going on in the cosmos? Like sometimes I even forget it's a full moon, but I'm just like, wait a minute. Ooh, I think it's a full moon coming up. And then I check, like, oh yeah. Oh, it is.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Especially I'm a
And
Cancer too, so I'm ruled a lot by moon. So I'm really
ah,
affected by it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Especially people who are uh, have the sun sign in Cancer are sensitive to the moon cycle, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a fascinating world. It really
it
is.
is. It is.
So speaking of fascinating, you trained directly with Dolores Cannon. How amazing. That, like, I don't even know where to begin. What was that like? What was the experience?
Well, I think she was quite a unique person and
Yeah.
um, great teacher.
Hmm.
Um, I also found that she was more of an investigator.
Hmm.
I think her attitude was more like looking at sessions from a, um, how do you say that? Well, she wanted to investigate history, right?
Yeah.
And so she wasn't really
She
a
analyzed
therapist.
it almost. Yeah.
Exactly. So she was always looking for facts and if she could prove things and
Yes.
looking
And
for
patterns and things. Yep.
patterns and events in history. And so she didn't really have a therapeutic approach towards quantum healing.
Yeah.
And but I think it was really great what she did because I think she started something that, well, is a foundation for many of us quantum healers today. So yeah, I think she was really
Did you
amazing.
meet Candace during that time too? Or was that
No,
after? Really?
no,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I am not sure if it was really after because during that time, Kenneth was also still working with Dolores, but
Right.
uh, I trained here in Europe, and
Right.
so there
Yeah.
she would have other people assisting her, of course. So, yeah, yeah, and it was actually when we were doing level 2 in Glastonbury. Um, I already had this feeling like, okay, I'm really grateful that we have this chance to see her and to, receive this education through her directly
I
because
know.
who knows how long she's going to be here. And
Yeah.
that was in August 2014, I think.
Oh,
And in October, she passed away.
yeah.
And it was a week before she passed away that I woke up one night and I saw her actually straight in front of me. And she said, I'm going to say goodbye to you.
Oh,
And I
ooh, I
was
got
like,
chills.
yes. And I was, goodbye. I mean, are you leaving? You're not leaving, are you? And she said, well, I would like to ask you to continue doing quantum healing and just whatever happens, stay on course and just continue this journey on quantum healing. And we didn't know if she was ill or if there was anything happening with her,
Right.
of course. So, and it was a week after that we heard that she passed away through an accident that she had on the exact day that I saw her
Wow.
well, during my night vision. So that was really amazing. So I did feel her, and there have been times where I feel that we make a connection whenever it's somehow necessary.
Mhm.
It doesn't happen very often, but there have been a few important points in my life where I really needed advice, and then she would show up.
Mm,
And I think that is so amazing because, you can have mediumistic connections and, receive messages from people, but I would always see her literally in front of me. And I think that really takes a great soul to be able to do that, to manifest her
yeah. A lot of
spiritual
energy, so
being.
much energy. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So I know that she's still working with many of her students.
Oh my gosh, yeah. She's so
Yeah,
busy. Busier
exactly.
now than ever. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, at first when she passed away, I was really sad, but I do realize that she's able to continue her work from behind the veil. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's beautiful.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
What would you say is like some of the biggest, if not one of the biggest lessons that you learned from her?
I think her um she was able to see through ego states.
Mm, yeah.
And if you would ask a question, sometimes I wouldn't really be satisfied with the answer, but she really brought it down to earth.
Yes.
She tried to make it simple, and so there wasn't a lot of woo-woo around her, and she made everything really practical, and this is something that I really like.
Yeah. One of the things I love that she always said was, you don't feed a baby a steak. Like that always is in my head. Whenever I'm trying to explain
Exactly.
something to someone who doesn't like get it, I'm like, okay, how can I do this like bite sizes?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Exactly. That's a great example.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, how did QHHT and BQH change your perspective on past lives, soul journeys, and healing?
Well, that's an interesting question because, as I mentioned, I was already working with astrology for a long time,
Right.
and I specialized with astrology into looking at past lives in the birth chart and karmic
Mm,
or esoteric astrology, as I call it.
okay.
This means that this is a kind of astrology where you look at the birth chart from the perspective that we are a soul going through many lives. And so this incarnation is just one of many. And so this chart, this birth chart, is also one of many. And I found ways to see other lives in the birth chart. And but anyway, at some point in my life, I had a near-death experience, and it was really after that experience that I discovered the work of Dolores Cannon, and I realized that this was really unique, and it has a unique perspective on exploring past lives because of the connection with the higher self.
Yeah.
And I think that is what really changed my perspective on past lives and consciousness because through quantum healing hypnosis, I really saw how you can connect with that state of being where we are during a near-death experience.
Mm,
Because I know every person who goes through a near-death experience has a unique experience, but I have been lucky to have the kind of experience where I felt I was in a blissful state and I was in the unity consciousness. I felt one with God, with everything in the universe. And so this was such well, an experience that was difficult to grasp or to give words to.
yeah.
And when I discovered the work of Dolores, I finally found a way that it all made sense. And I could see, wow, there is actually something like consciousness states that you can visit through hypnosis and visit that state where I ended up in a natural way during that near-death experience.
Mm,
And I found that amazing. And then I thought, I really want to learn this
yeah.
because it offers also many tools that we can find our inner wisdom and our inner authority, as I would like to call it.
Yeah.
If we find it connection with the higher self, we know that we can find all the answers within, and we never have to look at any guru or teacher or you name it,
Yeah.
because it's all inside of us. And if we are able to connect with that frequency, because I see the higher self as a frequency,
Mhm.
um, then we are able to find all the answers that we need. But and not only the answers, of course, but also the healing. And yeah, so it did change my perspective on past lives majorly. And I found it very interesting to when I was, going through the first training of QHHT, I really was wondering, like, what is happening if we are visiting a past life? Are we able to change it? Are we able to change the events that have happened? And Dolores, her perspective was that we should not change it
Right.
and that we should just explore and not change anything. But I thought the whole idea behind quantum physics is that everything changes by the way that we perceive it, by the way that we are observing it.
Yeah.
So I think if we are looking into past lives, we are already changing it.
I agree.
So I thought it is best to use that and to be aware of it when we are going into a past life.
Mm.
Because there's, I think, the importance of not bringing a trigger into this incarnation, but to look at the look at the past life, um, and look at it from a positive perspective to see what the positive effect it had, or what did we learn from it? How did it change us in a positive way?
Mhm.
It should empower us. I think that's what I want to say. It should
Yes.
empower us. That's so important. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I think when you look at past lives and quantum healing like that, not forgetting that there is this quantum physics behind it,
Mhm.
then you can look at astrology also from that perspective.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the classical astrologers, they look at the chart and they say, well, this energy is affecting us because the planet is standing there. And I don't think so. I think that we are looking at patterns and that we can also change it. We can change the expression of that pattern.
Mm.
For
Mm.
example, if someone would have, well, let's say Moon square Mars, which is usually something that people would say, well, this is like a tense energy between the moon, our emotional safety mechanism, and Mars, our energy, our assertiveness, our ability to make decisions. And if there's a tension between those two energies, it may be difficult to be assertive. And so, if that would be something present in a birth chart, I believe that when we look at astrology from a quantum healing perspective or from a quantum perspective,
Mhm.
that we are able to change that. We are able to, well, raise the energy of that aspect and turn it into something positive that we can use it. So, I think quantum healing really changed my perspective on astrology as well.
That's
So,
fascinating. And that was
yeah,
making me think like more of on a like a micro scale of what you were saying with the quantum entanglement. It's no different than when you do like the child work, the inner child work. It's the future self, current self, connecting with the past self, even though it's the current self, and you're healing that, and it's kind of like the same concept, just on parallel past other lives. It's
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
And I
that's
had
the
like the
same.
same almost thing with but with BQH because I wasn't honored enough to meet and be with Dolores, but um, I finally found the verbiage through all the courses and the community, and just I'm like, oh, there is a word, there is people doing what I do. There, it's not just so. It's been an amazing process and a beautiful community. I'm so honored
Yeah,
to be a part of it.
yeah, yeah, I think so too. I think I've met the most wonderful people in
Oh
this
my
quantum
gosh,
healing
yes,
community. I've
yes,
never seen that anywhere else. I really feel that it's so amazing
yeah.
that, and probably because we're on kind of the same level. And
Right. And just
yeah,
heart-centered, and we're just supportive. We love seeing everyone thrive, and I don't see competition with other healers. I mean, there's some out there that live that way, but like us
yeah,
true OGs, I feel like are just like we're just so loving and supportive and just makes me all gushy and I love
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Feels
you're
so
right.
good every time we connect. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Can you share a mind-blowing or unexpected story from a quantum healing session?
Oh, wow.
I'm sure there's so many.
Exactly. There's so many. So, which one is interesting to share? Oh, there are so many stories. Which one should I choose? I mean, it's really difficult question.
Mhm.
Well, I think there's one that comes up now spontaneously. So I guess that's
Okay.
one
That's the one, yeah.
that's lovely to share. It was a session with a lady um, who unexpectedly met her spirit animal during a quantum healing session.
Yeah.
And we never talked about that in the pre-talk, and she was not really into shamanism, or I don't think she even thought about spirit animals. But when she was exploring her past life, there was suddenly a wolf that entered and that made a connection. And she saw how that wolf touched her nose with his nose. And she said she could feel that wolf integrating into her being. But while that was happening, I could see her face change. I could literally see the features. It was really, really mind-blowing. And it was so beautiful and so pure. It was such a pure energy. And so that actually gave her a lot of strength, and it gave her some of the talents that that wolf had. And so she started to see herself through his eyes,
Mhm.
and which was really, really lovely.
Yeah.
And then I always have this part in a session. Well, not always, but in many cases, if I feel that someone needs some kind of empowerment, I always ask the higher self to offer a gift to that person. So it could be a crystal, could be a symbol. And in this case, the wolf came up again and he gave her puppies. Oh, that was so beautiful. And he placed those puppies on her belly. And
Oh my goodness.
that was so tangible. It was so,
Yes.
you could feel the energy. It was so
Yeah.
loving and pure. And yeah, there was, but actually seeing someone's face changing during a session,
Yes.
seeing the eyes of a wolf and the nose, it was amazing. Yeah,
Wow.
it was really
Wow.
amazing. And I think I actually had kind of a similar experience. I think about 2 years ago. Well, it wasn't similar because it wasn't a spirit animal, but it was during a session that I did with uh, B. Hoitling. And at some point, it was during an experience in Glastonbury. And at some point, I saw Joshua, and I saw that he connected with me, and I felt him stepping into me, just like that lady had that wolf
Mhm.
stepping into her being.
Yeah.
And I could feel his breath through my nose. Now, that was something
Yeah.
amazing. I thought, how is this possible? And I knew that, okay, I'm not that person. I'm not that soul. I'm just me. And
Right.
he's just visiting, probably to do some upgrade on my energies or something, or to heal something.
Yeah.
But to have this energy breathing through your nose, that was
Yeah.
amazing. That
Yeah.
was really, and then it made me think about this lady with her wolf spirit animal,
Right.
where she also had this spirit animal breathing through her nose. So
Hmm.
there's something about a life force energy there, isn't it? As
Yeah,
we breathe in and we breathe out. I mean, it's the essence of life, isn't it? Our breath and
it
what
is.
we breathe in.
Hmm.
So there's something very healing for me in what we breathe in during a session. And this is a theme that I've seen many times actually. And sometimes people would breathe in crystals, for example. And with your
Oh,
logical mind, you would never be able to breathe in a crystal. But
right.
in
Yeah,
this state of consciousness, we're able to do anything, right?
exactly.
So, yeah. And so there's really something special about our breath and our soul essence, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the reason why like most modalities are the foundation is breath work. So just it's one of my major goals is to help people breathe properly because most
Really?
people don't.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So you do integrate it in your sessions,
I'm
the
sorry,
breath
what?
work? Do you integrate the breath work
Oh
into
yeah. I
session?
begin each session and then if I feel like it's necessary somewhere during between like let's take a moment, let's do a quick breath exercise and
Yeah.
again you can physically see the shifts. That's one of my favorite things I wanted to mention too when you were talking about seeing the physical shifts. Is like the pre-interview and then the post and just like doing like a side by side of like their faces and their energy, just demeanor. It's just it's
Yeah.
visually you can see it. It's palpable. It's
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
powerful.
Yeah. Amazing, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the best.
Yeah.
So speaking of like patterns, have you noticed any common themes and patterns in your sessions recently?
Well, I don't do a lot of sessions, the last couple of years because I focus more on teaching quantum healing.
Okay.
Um, but what I have often noticed is that when I would see a pattern in my sessions, for example, a theme that would come up a whole week with different people, I would also notice if I would write about it on the forum that other practitioners would have similar themes
Yeah.
coming up for their clients. And I
Yeah.
think that's pretty amazing
Yeah.
that there's something in the collective that is coming up for practitioners in different parts of the world.
Hmm.
And I think I do sessions with B, like I mentioned, and we do mostly sessions for my books, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Because we feel guided to do that, and
Yeah.
there's usually so much information coming through that yeah, that I write about it in my books. But
Good. Good.
we do see a theme about two things about portals and about water, and sometimes in combination,
Yeah. Yeah.
where water shows up as a portal. And but we've also seen sessions where we can see a gate opening and we hear that there's a lot of light coming in, and not just for me, but for the world, right? That there's something for the collective coming in. And yeah, so that really is fascinating. And it always makes me feel very hopeful because there's a lot going on in the world, of course.
Yeah.
And but when I look at these sessions, I know that there's also a lot of good happening, and there's a lot of influx of light to
So
help us.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, so much. And I feel privileged as a practitioner that we are able to witness this energy and to be able to receive this light and to pass it on to well the people that we connect with. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, yeah. And water is a theme, like I
Oh
mentioned.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is so interesting because um, we have seen water coming up, well, actually with B, but also in a session that did with Candace, which was a tandem session, but we will talk about that in a video with Candace later. But
Hey, yeah.
shouldn't give it away now, I guess.
No, no,
But
yeah. That was
but
a
it
good
was
little sneak
about
peek. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel it's so well important to share right now because there's so much happening right now related to that.
Yeah.
Um, we were seeing a flood, like a big flood, and shortly after that session, I also saw that in a session with B, and I went to Spain, and I was traveling to Valencia, and on the very day that we were traveling to Valencia, there was this big flood. And and well, we weren't affected by it personally, but we saw what was happening and how it really um, it brought down everything. Like there was no internet, the shops had to close. It was like a big breakdown, and but I could really feel that there was something more than just a natural disaster. And I felt there was something related to Atlantis and what happened with the downfall of Atlantis. And maybe it's just a personal thing, of course, maybe because I do remember lives in Atlantis. So maybe it was just personal for me, but I
Yeah.
really felt there was a strong connection with the flood that I was experiencing at that moment and what was happening in Atlantis. And of course, I looked at the charts to see what was happening. Well, there's a lot going on in the sign of Pisces at the moment, of course. And at that time, there was an opposition of Neptune to my Pluto in my birth chart, which is like the Pluto is the crisis, right?
Okay.
It's going through something that is being destroyed in order to something new that can
Hmm.
rise up from the flames, like the phoenix, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And and this was happening through the theme of water and flooding.
Hmm.
So I think this is something that I come across lately, the theme of water.
Yeah,
And as you may know, I work with water, with the consciousness of water, or the spirit of water, as you may
yeah.
um, call it. So yeah, there's a lot happening around water, and I think there will be much more coming.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
Even on the news, there's ocean aliens and all these other things happening around water. So it's finally manifesting.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I really believe, from an astrological point of view, that this is something that will come up this year, that we will discover things that are happening
Yes.
under water in the
Yep.
ocean, alien life or UFOs coming up
Mhm.
from the ocean. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned this because it's something that I really feel that's going to happen this year.
I
Yeah,
agree. I felt that for a while, and I'm not like a predictive type of person, but even on my own personal sessions, 2025 just kept coming up that by the end of it, it's going to be like the world's going to be unrecognizable. And that's
yeah,
going to be individual, what that means for each person, where they are in their journey and their path. But yeah,
yeah,
I'm here
yeah,
for it. I'm here for
yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah.
How has your practice evolved over the years into what you now offer?
Well, I actually made a shift from doing sessions more to teaching quantum
Right,
healing.
right.
So yeah, and writing about it, because doing sessions is really unique, and I really love it. But it's also very consuming
Yeah,
because it's so intense, and you spend a lot of hours with one client. And
yes,
I think it was during the whole pandemic situation that I realized how important it was to reach a lot of people and to bring healing to a lot of people. And I thought, well, you can't do that by doing spending one day on each client or a half day.
yeah,
Um, so that's when I felt inspired to teach people quantum healing. And that's what I started doing on Udemy because Udemy offers courses usually on low prices because I felt it was so important to offer it, yeah, to make it available for everyone.
yeah,
Also for people in countries on a lower budget or so yeah, that's what I started doing. And of course, I also started creating the astrology courses as well. So I
yeah.
guess you could say I made a shift towards teaching.
Teacher, yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's beautiful. I signed up for two of your astrology courses. I just haven't had a chance to. It's been what? When we did our roundtable, like 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
Just
Oh,
right after that, I purchased them and just been sitting in my Udemy. I'm like, one day I'm going to have a moment because I just want to actually absorb it. I don't want to just like skim through it. So I'm excited.
um,
Yeah.
Oh, it's great because I'm actually updating one of these courses,
Oh,
my
perfect.
first astrology course, and I've added some videos and I've changed some videos because when I started, I was so limited in my ability to make videos,
Yeah,
and
it's
of
a
course,
lot.
it's all about the information. So the information that comes through is really valuable, I think.
Yeah,
But I've grown in my technical abilities in creating courses, so I thought it was time for some upgrade, and yeah, so
awesome.
yeah,
I'm excited.
yeah.
So you mentioned your near-death experience. Could you tell us a little bit what that was and what happened?
Well, it was it was a long time ago, 2007, I think, or maybe 2006, so
Yeah.
quite a long time
Yeah.
ago. It was actually when the North Node was in Pisces. And the North Node is now in Pisces again after like 17 years. And usually, when the North Node is re entering the same zodiac sign again, there's a repetition of something. And anyway, when I talk about astrology,
No, I
I
love it. I love
go to stuff. So
it.
sorry, because
No.
you asked about a near-death experience. But well, um, it's difficult to talk about what caused it because there was a lot. It wasn't one thing that caused it.
Okay,
Um, but for me, what is important to talk about what I experienced during that, well, happening, you could say.
for sure.
Um, it was on a moment when I lost consciousness and I woke up like nearly 2 days later, 1.5 or 2 days later. And I wasn't able to talk, to walk, and I had a kind of a stroke experience.
Okay.
But I don't want to talk about the medical part about that experience. I find it important to talk about what was happening during that time
Yeah,
when I
yeah,
was in that other state of being.
for sure.
Um, what happened was that I saw my life moving past me like a movie that's played backwards. And, I've read about these things happening, but when it's actually happening to you, that's so weird because I could see every little second of my life passing by.
Yeah,
Every conversation that I had in my life, I could see my parents when I was a toddler standing in the kitchen, talking, having, small talk, making jokes with each other, having fun.
yeah,
And I was actually seeing it, but I was also aware of how crazy it is that every single moment in our life is being registered in our memory, that it's still there, even when you think you don't register
yeah,
certain events, it's all there.
yep.
And eventually, I saw myself going back in the time in the womb before I was born. And then I saw myself go back to past lives, and I had a feeling that I could see every past life that I had ever lived and eventually ending up in source. I can't name it any different. It was pure love. It was pure light. And it was such a unique experience because I felt I was literally one with everything
Mhm.
and that there was no difference between me and a cloud or me and a tree and it was so beautiful, but especially the love that I felt as
Yes.
if you're being embraced by that divine essence or that divine consciousness that we all come from. And it is life changing, of course. And at some point, I knew I had to go back, and that happened very suddenly. And so I had a feeling as if I was, dropped back on Earth again,
Yeah.
like a hard bang, like,
Dense.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm
Very
back.
dense.
Yeah, exactly. And it took a while before I, could understand what happened because I didn't really understand what happened to me. Like, what was this? Was it a dream? I mean, it took really a long time before I could really process it. And but later on, I had another experience like that, another well, near-death experience, which was different because I felt that one wasn't medically induced or but more in a spiritual way,
Okay.
because it happened during a retreat, during a meditation. And I
Mm,
started floating out of my body. And I reached that point of consciousness where you also reach that state of oneness. And again, it was so beautiful. And at some point, it was as if I was standing on the top of a mountain, and I heard this voice saying to me, if you take one more step, you won't be able to return to your physical body.
oh,
And um, and then I thought about my children. And then boom, I was back in my
yeah.
body. And and I knew there was a reason, because having two of these kind of experiences within a time frame of 8 months or so,
Oh,
it's
wow.
like, why is this happening to me? Like, um, and I know that I was once part of a masterclass of Veda Austin about near-death experiences, where there were like 11 guests talking about their near-death experiences, and we discovered that many people who have one near-death experience, they usually have more.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about like, what is it that some people never experience this, and some people have multiple near-death experiences? Why is this happening? And one of the ladies said, well, are some people sensitive to being drawn to moving beyond the fields and going to a life, um, yeah, outside of a physical body?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I believe that having a near-death experience is all about coming back. And I think it means that we have a really strong connection to life because
Yes.
we didn't end up there. We came back in this physical existence,
Hmm.
and we came back to probably do something with that experience and to share what we had, well, witnessed, what we have felt, the huge amount of love that we can feel during those kind of experiences. I
Yeah.
think this is so important to share because it makes you realize that all the trials and all the conflicts that we may experience in human relationships is all useless because
Yeah.
in the end we all end up in the same collective consciousness.
Yep.
And what I also experienced during that time is that, well, you're kind of being surrounded by guides or your healing team when this is happening.
Yeah.
Well, that was my experience at least. And I remember that they were saying, they were giving guidance to watching all those experiences in your life and how difficult they may have been. And they were saying it was just an experience and you just needed to learn and you just needed to grow.
Hmm.
And no harm done. You just,
Yeah.
learned your lessons and you can continue. And so, yeah, that's really fascinating.
It is. And something I tell people, again, I like giving the macro to the micro, but like if you watch a movie, you don't like it, you don't watch it again. You don't let it affect your entire life, or you might be in a bad mood for a couple hours after watching it, but like now you know you don't want to watch that again. Just let it go. It's like that with a
Exactly.
memory or a thought or a frequency or a lifetime. Just experience it, observe it. Okay, let it go. Done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it, right? It's like don't connect with it, just let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So how would you say, you kind of explained it, but how did that NDE shape your mission and your approach to healing?
Well, I've learned that I think what it helped me to do is to connect with my inner wisdom
Yeah.
and with my higher self and understanding the different layers in our consciousness.
Hmm.
And and I felt really passionate about sharing that with other people and showing them how you can connect with your higher self, and that if you have certain emotions or that when you're feeling stuck, this is only on one level of your consciousness. This blockage is not happening on another layer of your consciousness. So when you can tune into the other parts of your being, you can solve it.
Yeah.
It's just like reconnecting with the most healthiest parts of your being.
Mm,
And so I guess if you, it's all about empowering. That's what I feel that quantum healing is about, and
yeah,
past life regression is about, is
yeah,
to show people who they are in essence, the
yes.
soul that they are, and how that can empower them.
Mm.
Yeah.
The sovereignty, just tapping back into that sovereignty. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say to someone who is afraid of death or the unknown?
Um, well, it's difficult, of course, to to share how peaceful it is and how loving and how gentle. And that it's just, there's not much of a difference between being on that other side or being in a physical body. It's just like a door that opens and you can step through it, and you can step back, of course, when you're past that physical boundary of death. You can't always come back in that physical shape,
Right.
but our consciousness is always there.
Yes.
And but I think what is important, what I also used to offer in my sessions, is to let people experience the last day in an incarnation, and to let them see how it is to pass on, and to let them see how peaceful it can be, and that there is very little difference in their consciousness when they pass through that veil,
Yeah.
and that when they're on the side, life goes on in a
Yeah.
different shape, but we are still that soul, we are still that consciousness. I think that's what I've learned through my near-death experience, is that when um, there was this time when I couldn't make sentences, I couldn't communicate, I couldn't count to eight, um, so I couldn't really think, but I still had awareness. I had feelings I could observe, and I had my thoughts. And I remember that while I wasn't able to talk, I did have that realization that I was able to think and absorb, and that my essence was not my brain, and that my
Mm,
essence was something that is apart from that physical existence. The physical body is just a house, a vehicle that we can use, but it's not who we are.
yeah.
And this is something that you can show people when they are going through past life experiences.
That's
Yeah,
wonderful. Yeah.
yeah.
Love that. So you mentioned that how you blend astrology with quantum healing. How do planetary alignments affect our spiritual growth, awakening, and healing?
Well, I believe that everything that is happening in the cosmos is happening within ourselves, because we are part of nature.
Right.
And so we are following similar patterns that are happening in nature. And by looking at the movements of the stars and looking at the patterns, we can realize how these patterns are behaving within us.
Yeah.
And I always see that the planets are symbolic for our psychological needs. So I see them as representatives of the subpersonalities that we have. And so I don't see that a planet is really influencing by radiating their energies, but
Right.
I see that everything is happening in a certain pattern, and that we are moving through similar patterns. And by looking at changes in the patterns, we can realize the changes that we are going through and what they mean and what they can show us or teach us.
Yeah.
And um, but I've also learned that it is possible to tune into the consciousness of a planet, because I feel that our Earth has a consciousness of its own, and that we can tune into that. And the same can be said for other planets. So we are able to tune into the different planets and connect with them and communicate with them. And
Mm,
this is what I call quantum astrology.
okay.
So when we are looking at this perspective to a birth chart, we can analyze a birth chart by, analyzing the symbols, the planets, the zodiac signs, as we have been taught. But there's another way to look at the chart, and that's by connecting with the planets and looking at a chart, looking at the sun, for example, and saying, okay, sun in Pisces, what can you tell me? What do you like to share about this person?
Mm,
And then you have another kind of communication, and that
yeah,
is actually more like channeling the information within a chart.
yeah.
And it's really fascinating, but because you can discover a lot of information that you wouldn't be able to discover by looking at the chart logically.
Mm,
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
that so much. That's fascinating.
yeah.
I'm so excited to teach or take that course. Are there any major astrological transits right now that people should be aware of?
Yes, yes, there are. And um, well, there are a lot of them happening at the moment, and this year especially.
Yeah,
And the first of these major transits, as we call them, happened in November 2024 when Pluto entered Aquarius. Now, Pluto had been in the sign of Capricorn for many years, and when a slow planet changes sign, this is really significant because it is affecting the collective consciousness.
yeah,
And the whole time where Pluto had been in a Capricorn, it was a time where the pandemic happened. And we have the housing crisis and financial crisis. What Pluto, who is all about transformation and the subconscious mind,
yeah.
and about crises that can change us. When that is positioned in Capricorn, it brings up all our fears. So all the years that it happened in Capricorn, it was like all the collective fears were coming through the surface, to the surface.
Yeah.
And I think we all have felt that.
Yeah.
And in November 2024, Pluto changed to Aquarius. And Pluto about transformation entering the sign of Aquarius is all about awakening. It's about the rebel consciousness. It's about giving the power back to the people, to the community.
Mm,
And it's about liberating ourselves from fears, but also liberating ourselves from false prophets or manipulations. And so I feel that this was really marking the beginning of the age of Aquarius.
mhm.
And so I feel that this was the beginning of the great awakening that we all have been feeling. And that, of course, has been, um, you could feel it happening for many years by now, but
Yeah.
this is really a stepping stone into that new consciousness and into that new earth.
Yeah.
And so we have a whole lineup of planets this year who are all will be moving from Pisces and into Aries. And it's like a reset. It's like many planets will move into Aries, which is like the beginning of the beginning, right? And so there's whole new cycles opening up this year. It's like a new portal into a new consciousness.
Yeah.
And I think we will see major changes, like really, really major. And I think they will be strongly related to life outside of this planet,
Mhm.
um, maybe having contact with other planets.
Yep.
And I know that this will be the year of disclosure,
Yep.
coming from multiple sources, from multiple agendas, probably.
Mhm.
And but we can really see that astrologically that this is going to happen this year. So
Okay.
and I actually made a video about that with the year expectations from an astrological point of view for this year. And I talk about all these major changes this year. And so, yeah, this is the year of Aquarius. This is the year of liberation
Yeah,
and
that's
the new consciousness and awakening. Yeah,
love it.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah, yeah.
So
And a
excited.
great year for, yeah, it's a great year for quantum healers
It
because,
really is, finally.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Been rough.
Yeah, and I think quantum healers can do so much that is beneficial in the light of this new
Yeah,
consciousness and
yeah.
in light of the revelations that will probably be happening this year. So
Mhm.
yeah,
So many people are more open and just like understanding and willing to do this work, so it's great.
exactly. Yeah.
How can someone use their birth chart to navigate life with more clarity?
Um, Well, I think a birth chart offers clarity on so many levels. In a practical way, I mean, you can find information about your roots, your ancestors, your family life. You can find information about what are the themes that you encounter in relationships, for example, or in the relationship with your children.
Yeah.
And what are the patterns that you find in work situations or career-wise, or what is the mission in life, and what are the karmic patterns that we can change? So there are so many things that we can find in a birth chart. I mean, I've been doing this for over 40 years, and I still discover new things in astrology. And yeah, there's so much that you can discover and where it can bring clarity on so many levels. I
Mhm.
think practical, but also spiritual. Like, why did we choose this incarnation? Why did we choose this family to be born into?
Mhm.
And this is really fascinating because you can often see that there are similarities between the people in one family. Um, they often have a similar planetary position in the charts. For example, a mother can have the moon in Pisces, and the daughter will have the sun in Pisces, for example, or one having the North Node in Aries and the other having the North Node in Libra, which is on the same axis, right?
Okay.
Which means that people incarnate into families where they can learn their lessons, where they can live their and develop their life mission.
Mm,
Yeah,
that makes
yeah.
sense. Just like coming into balance what was out of balance almost.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I think that's a beautiful way of saying it because I think that's one of the purposes of astrology to offer balance by looking at um, the patterns in our chart and the patterns in our life.
Yeah.
Why does this often happen to me? Why do I keep repeating this pattern?
Mhm.
Or why do I keep falling in love with a certain type of person? And when you look at the birth chart, you can find the reason why, and you can find the key how to change that, how to transform it.
Yes,
And I think that's really well a great tool to have available. Yeah.
I agree. I just feel like the
Yeah.
human ego is not a big fan of it because it doesn't like being told what to do. So the human side's like, no, that's not true. That's not me.
Exactly.
But once you accept it, integrate it, your entire life will change. So just saying.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
What are some key things that you think people overlook when it comes to astrology?
Um, what I often notice when people are practicing astrology um, is that they tend to be too technical.
Yeah.
And I feel it is important to be intuitive with the whole process.
Mhm.
And when people are trying to use astrology for other people, to be aware of it, not to be too technical. But also, I feel that we need to know ourselves when we are analyzing the birth charts for other people, because if we don't know ourselves, we are likely to project our own themes onto other people's charts.
Yeah.
And I think this is really important to find an astrologer who has, well, a certain kind of level of awareness and someone who knows herself or himself.
Okay.
And because that's really important. If someone is still quite unconscious, they will analyze the birth chart from a fear-based perspective
Mhm.
or from, how do you say that? They will have certain, yeah, they may look at it black and white, but there are always so many nuances in a chart. It's about seeing the the combination of things. And I feel that when people are learning astrology, they often look at the separate pieces of the puzzle.
Mm,
But the biggest information is not in those separate pieces. It's about how they are all working together
yeah.
and how they are creating something, yeah, that is bigger than the different pieces.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, and that is an intuitive process. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I guess when I was being trained in astrology, um, well, nearly 40 years ago. I remember my teacher was a great person. She was really, very wise woman. But she was also a scientist, and she
Mm.
had the goal of bringing astrology into the scientific world. She
Yeah.
wanted to prove that this is a scientific instrument. And so there wasn't really any space for intuition because she said, well, that's, you know, bringing astrology into the woo-woo corner.
Huh.
And we don't want,
Yeah.
we don't want that. We want astrology to be acknowledged as being a science or a semi-science.
Huh.
That was her goal.
Right.
And I see that many astrologers have had that goal for many years,
Yeah.
probably because it was a bit of a taboo in the past to use astrology.
Right.
And but I've never, looked at it from that perspective because I thought, well, I don't care if it's not scientific or not scientific. I just want to connect with the chart and to see the information that is underneath the surface, and you have to use your intuition to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah,
I think like the cosmopolitan horoscope era is what kind of gave astrology a bad name, just like Miss Cleo
yeah.
gave healers a bad name, or just like hypnotists, you're getting sleepy, gave hypnotherapy a bad name. So it's just that's what we're reinventing, I feel like, with this time around. So
Exactly,
yeah, there's so much
exactly.
stigma behind the words of what we do.
Yeah, that's right. And I feel that astrology will become much more important in the coming years because now that Pluto has entered Aquarius and there's so much happening in the Aquarius energies.
Yeah.
And this is a time of awakening. I feel that astrology will become a tool that, yeah, will become available to the public, and it will become common. I think more people will start to use it
Yeah.
because astrology is something that belongs to Aquarius and the energies of Aquarius. So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
I I'm just fascinated by it because we're in the time where the science and the spiritual are melding as they ought to. It's shouldn't have been separated to begin with, so it's
yeah.
fascinating. That's fascinating.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
So you've written books, you've created courses, and now you do weekly astrological videos for our beautiful quantum healers community. What inspired you to start sharing these teachings on a bigger platform?
Well, it was interesting because I've been thinking about creating videos with my astrological insights, but I was a bit hesitating to do that. And um, but at some point, I started talking with Candice, and I can't remember if she asked me or if I offered it, but we had the same idea at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, one and one together. And that's how I started making the videos for the Quantum Healers platform. So, and I really like doing that. I really enjoy it. Yeah. Yeah.
I've started doing daily vlogs this year, so today I'm on day 27 and it just feels good to just constantly just show up and give yourself out there and the more that we share, of course, the more that comes in and it's a fun process. It really is.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can imagine if you do this daily, you really get in tune with the collective consciousness because
Mhm.
you're tapping into that when you do it daily, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. Especially because before each one, I of course usually have a theme, but I tap in like, okay, what's today's topic? And it could be something random like a chakra or toning, or we're going to do yoga today, or let's talk about clearing energy. There's just so much,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
So what do you cover in your weekly videos for astrology?
Well, I look at the planetary positions and I see what is happening in that week.
Okay.
And so I will discuss everything that will be happening on the astrological level that week and give my analysis about it. But especially I want to keep it practical. And I had the intention of making videos that aren't too long because I know that many people or they don't have a lot of time or a lot of energy to listen for an hour. So I thought if I would create videos that are like 10 minutes about astrology. Um, and so it needed to be compact. And I thought I want to go straight to the core, like how can we use this on a practical level? And
You have
so that's
visuals. which helps a lot because I need visuals myself, especially with, again, these terms and concepts that are just so out of this world, literally. So, yeah,
Yeah, I thought that would be helpful because
it
that's a
is.
question that I often receive from my students is that they find it hard to remember, what does Pluto look like or what does Pisces look like and
Yeah,
how can we recognize all these symbols? So I thought if I start to create these videos, I want to make visuals about it so that it's easier to remember what I'm talking about. Yeah.
yeah, it's helpful. I'm just letting you know.
That's great.
Um, can you share a bit about your courses and who they're designed for?
Yes. Well, I have my quantum healing courses and I have astrology courses, and most of them are on Udemy, and some of them are on my website. I will be offering more courses outside of Udemy and straight through my website.
Okay.
Um, but the quantum healing courses are, well, for people who want to start with quantum healing and they are not sure. How to start or where to start or if it's really something for them. So I've created the foundation level course and an advanced course for people, yeah, to offer them extra tools. And I've also created a quantum energy clearing course, which is a method that I've created through working with spirit release. And I've been trained in spirit release therapy, but I've always felt that the quantum perspective was missing
Mm,
because when people were doing the spirit release and to see if there were attachments or earthbound spirits attached to someone, I had a feeling that by looking at people's aura with that intention, you could actually create it because you may be inviting certain energies. And I
yeah.
thought, that's not how I would like to do that. So I created my own technique, quantum energy clearing. And I've learned a lot from my teachers in the spirit release field. So I mean, with all respect and appreciation, um, but I use it as a foundation, but I've built
Yeah.
my own technique around it from my own perspective because
Mhm.
I feel that in any therapy, when we are looking to solve a problem, we shouldn't be focusing on a problem too long. I think we should use the 2080 technique, like focus on the problem for 20% and then
Mhm.
focus on the solution for 80%.
I like that.
Because energy goes where attention flows, right? Or how do you say that?
I think that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. I know what you meant.
yeah, I was confused that. But but I mean to say that it's important to focus on what we want to see as healed.
Yes.
And I think I've learned that through one of my own experiences during my near-death experience, or after my near-death experience, I should say.
Yeah.
I was really ill back then. And like I said, I couldn't walk, I couldn't hardly talk. And one day I received an email in my email box. And it was the first day that I thought, let's see if I can read something because I wasn't able to read.
Wow.
And I thought, well, it was after a couple of months, and I thought, let's give it a try if I can read an email. And there was this email, and from Jumanja in the title, and it had one message. It said, "We see you in the light of love, and we see you as healed." And yeah, exactly. I felt my heart, like, oh, it was such a beautiful message. And I thought, where does this message come from? And who sent me this message? And when I closed off my computer and I wanted to open it again, the message was gone.
Wow.
And I never discovered who it came from, but I felt that it was just, a message from spirit with the name of Jemanja, the water goddess.
That's
And
beautiful.
and of course, after that experience, I ended up on the journey of discovering the spirit of water. And but it did show me that if you want to heal, don't focus on what caused your problem, what caused an illness, but focus on seeing yourself as whole and healthy and healed.
Yes.
This is so important. So yeah.
I always say one of my gifts is I don't see problems, I see solutions. But like I don't ever. That's not how I live my life. Like I never have, and I never will. So that's rare.
Yeah,
Apparently, I learned that through experience and age and growing up, and not everyone is like that. So that's why
yeah.
I guess I'm good at what I do because it's
Oh,
just
that's
there's so many more solutions than that one problem. Like,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's so beautiful that you see it like that. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is one key message that you hope people take away from your work and teachings?
I think the unity consciousness that we all come from love and that we all go back to that source of love and that we are just here having our experiences and that in essence we are love and that's what we meant to share. I think that's the core message that I would like to share with my
I
work.
agree. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. I love that. Where do you see quantum healing and spiritual awakening headed in the future?
I think that it will reach a point where everyone will visit a quantum healer, just like people are visiting their, GP. And I think it will be the healing method of the future.
I agree.
Yeah, I really believe so. Yeah.
I even see
And
like for the past couple, even 3 or 4 years, I've seen a lot of celebrities have like spiritual advisors or just like people on their team that are like a spiritual person. It's really, really cool how,
yeah,
again, it's all just coming together as it's meant
it
to.
is. Yeah, beautiful, eh? Yeah. And you also see that with astrology, by the way. You know
Yeah.
that
Yep.
most royals have an astrologer, and
Exactly.
it has been like that for ages.
Forever.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's why I always say like people confuse this new age and not understanding that it's the original. We're just coming back to
exactly.
what is. Same with astrology.
Yeah,
Obviously, they had nothing else but the stars and the cosmos and alignments, and so it's not all just woo-woo, like by at
exactly.
all.
Exactly.
How do
Yeah.
you think our understanding of consciousness and healing will evolve in the coming years?
I think that that more and more people will start to realize that we are not our physical body, that we are not the identity as we have been trained to believe
Yeah,
that we are much more, and that we are not just human beings, but that we are cosmic beings.
yeah,
And that was something that came through in the sessions that I've done with B and that I wrote about in my book, The Healing Light of Water. Um, I think that more and more people will start to realize that we are cosmic beings and that we will meet our cosmic family in the near future and that we will start to engage with them
mm,
and that we will see that it isn't that strange or that unusual or nothing to be afraid of, that it's just family.
yeah,
And I even think that those beings that we see as alien could be just us from the past or us from the future. And it's just a different aspect of who we are as a collective. So, yeah, I think that's what people will start to awaken up to, or how do you say that? Awaken to. Yeah.
yeah. I would say it's already happening for sure to many of us, and it's just people are starting to get the confidence to share those stories, especially because with the macro of the governments and all their disclosure and sharings, they're like, oh, well, actually, when I was younger, I saw a fill in the blank and just go from there. Like, how have you never told anyone that?
Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly.
I would be
Yeah,
shouting it from the rooftops, but I was blessed. Like my mom's very hippy dippy, so like you had your father, so I was
yeah,
never squelched. Whenever I had a weird sharing, my mom's like, "Ooh, tell me more." It was never like, "Oh, you're making it up. Shut it down."
yeah,
I was
yeah,
always able
exactly.
to evolve and expand growing up, so I
Yeah,
love
oh,
that.
that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think is next for the big shift happening on the collective level?
I think the what is next is that people will start to realize that they have a choice and
Yeah,
that they have more authority, that they are the directors of their own life when they realize what choices they do have, and that they don't have to connect with everything that's negative. I mean, when you watch the news or, yeah, there's so much negativity coming towards us. And um, also in the alternative media. And I think it's important that we connect with positive news and not by ignoring everything that is happening in the world. I don't mean to say that, but
Right.
again, the 2080 rule. Know what is happening, but focus on the life that you want to create and the earth that you want to create, that you want to be part of. Think, and knowing that we have a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
My cliche saying, I feel like I say almost every recording now, is observe, don't absorb. It's that simple,
Oh,
that very simple. Just observe it, watch it. Don't get sucked in, don't get pulled in, don't take it in. Just watch it. Just watch.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
again, I'm kind of like the Dolores in that way where I try to take these big old concepts and put it like into a little bumper sticker.
Yeah.
So that's one of mine.
It's
Observe,
great.
not absorb.
Yeah. Oh, you have more of these beautiful sayings. I remember when I was in Valencia during that flood, and I was kind of a bit devastated. Like, why is this happening? Why did I have this timing? And and then I was listening to one of your videos, and you said something. I don't know if I, repeat it in the exact way, but you said something like, "People are like acupuncture needles, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sometimes they need to be at a certain position on the earth to change the energy."
Yes.
And that was so comforting for me, to know that I was there for a reason. I just needed that reminder, and
I do too, constantly, because I ask myself to this day sometimes, like, why the fuck am I here? Why am I in Michigan? It's so dense, it's so cold. But then I know once I go out in the community and just have that one conversation or experience with that one person, I'm like, ah, this is why I'm here
exactly.
today. And so let's just,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it can be a lot to accept, especially if you're in not the best area or just not having the best experiences. But yes, as you said, you have options. There are solutions. Don't
Yep.
get consumed in the doom and gloom.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
If you could share one truth about reality that most people don't realize, what would that be?
I guess it would be one of my perspectives on life, and I don't want to say that this is the truth, it's just my perspective, right?
Yeah.
That I believe that there are multiple timelines available for us. And this is something that I also mentioned in one of my quantum healing courses and in my book. But it was shown to me during a session once, which was so beautiful. The guys were really showing me while I was, being the practitioner in that session, but I was also receiving downloads of information.
Yeah.
And they were showing me that we all have options, that we have different timelines to choose from every second. So if we want to choose to change our life now, we can tune in to the timelines that are available. And they said that in essence, there are countless timelines available, but some timelines are more likely to come in our consciousness field because they are resonating with the consciousness that we are in at the moment.
Yeah.
And so we usually have well, they mentioned 4 or 5, it could be more, I guess, but that are timelines that are available because our consciousness is ready for it at that
Mm,
point in time.
okay.
And by tuning into these timelines, we can activate it, we can choose it. And I've really seen that happening. It's something that I've been teaching and I've seen the results of it, and it's amazing.
It really is.
Yeah,
And that's where
yeah,
I
it
feel like it
is.
can be classified as science because it's almost like proven.
Repeatable.
Like, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. It's repeatable. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
again, with quantum physics, they're proving the quantum entanglement and all the things that we have been experiencing and do during our sessions. So I just love the melding. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Exactly.
Wow, Patricia, I love this. I'm about to wrap it up, but the last thing that I always ask is if you had a superpower, what would it be and how would you use it to help humanity?
That's such a nice question.
Yeah.
A superpower.
Yep.
Hmm. I've always wanted to fly.
Oh yeah, that's the number one answer for sure.
I guess that would be something. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Well, I guess one of the superpowers would be by location. And
Ooh.
yeah, I've been receiving information during one of my channelings about that I at some point I would discover how to use bilocation. And of
Yeah.
course, as quantum healers, we are doing something similar because, when we are kind of doing things like astral traveling when we are exploring past lives. But I think it would be great if you would be able to really bilocate, just like we used to see in Star Trek, you
Right,
know?
right.
I think I would love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be very helpful.
Yeah, it could be very helpful. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for taking this time, Patricia. It really means so much. And I intend that you come back so we can delve deeper into some more topics because this is just so fun, so fun.
Oh,
And this
I
has
would
been an
love to. And I think that you really ask amazing questions, really great questions. So thank
thank
you.
you. Yeah, this
Thank
has
you for
been
that.
like coming to fruition for years because I just love all of my quantum healer practitioners who have now become friends. And there's just so many questions and conversations that I'm like, this needs to be put out there. Like we're having
Yeah,
so many conversations and that could help so many people. So,
I
yay.
think it's a brilliant idea. So thank you so much for inviting me. And I would love to come back. Yeah.
Good, 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 good. This has
Yeah.
been an amazing conversation. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. So, where can people find you, work with you, and learn more about your offerings?
Well, they can find me through the Quantum Healers forum, of course, when they Google my name or location, when they look for the Netherlands
Yeah.
and or look for Patricia Grootjans. My difficult Dutch name.
Beautiful.
And on my website, www.patriciagrootjans.com.
Okay. We'll put all the links, of course, in the description for all the folks.
Yeah, great.
Friends, if you enjoyed this conversation, which I'm sure you did, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and let's keep expanding this high vibe community. Any final words before we go?
Well, thank you so much, and keep shining because I think you're a beautiful soul, and I think you're so inspirational. And it's not just what you do, what you say; it's just your whole energy. I love it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Likewise, I received that. All right. Everyone,
Yeah.
have an amazing everything, and we'll speak soon.
Bye.